Hi, everyone, and welcome to oh my God, Bill, I fumbled the opening. You always say hi, everyone. I say hello, everyone, and I'm Rusty. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of Roar Lions Roar. I am your host tonight, Matt Filipovitz, and I will not be editing that out. And I am
Good.
joined by my phenomenal co-host, Bill DeFilippo. Bill, hello, how are you?
I was very worried that you were about to say, "Don't worry, I'll edit that out." So I'm glad you're not doing that. But otherwise, I'm doing all right. So,
I
well,
don't think
I'm
I
just
realized like the routine of it all of my intro. I always say
you.
hello, and I'm like, oh, I'll mix it up. I'll say hi this time, and it completely broke my brain.
It's one thing that from hosting pods in the Penn State sphere for one reason or another, dating back to like 2014 at this point. It's amazing, and I'm sure people who have listened to the pods over the years at BSD and here could tell like some of it is just autopilot at this point, and it's very easy to notice the parts that are just straight up on autopilot: the intro, the outro, the all that sort of stuff.
The host read, we do have talking points. Host read, LMAO. The ad read, we do have
Yeah.
talking points. I don't have them here, but real quick up front, I know we had some audio issues in the last episode. I apologize for that. Towards the latter half, it looked like it kind of got merged a little bit, and there was really not much of a delay between Bill and myself. I think I figured out the problem. Going forward, should be fixed. So appreciate your patience to the listenership there. And Bill, it's a pretty quiet week for Penn State football outside of the recruiting trail, which we think is about to catch fire. With any luck, during our recording here tonight, we're going to learn about a commit. We're recording on Wednesday at 5 p.m., so something should be coming in pretty soon. But, Bill, up front, I think the biggest news of the actual season coming up is the final four freshmen in Penn State's
Yeah.
class have gotten to campus. We'll address it up front, Bill, and then we can quickly touch on, what we expect their role to be in 2023, if it's anything. But the four final members of the class are Chimdi Ono, Jameel Lyons, Carmelo Taylor, and Mason Robinson. Up front, Bill, we won't do the whole, red light, green light thing. These guys are all red lights to me. Anything different from you, just up front?
No, I mean, and I think so much of that comes down to circumstance where you get onto campus as late as they are, the other dudes in your freshman class just inherently have a bit of a leg up on you. You'll get a guy like, Jameel Lyons. I would be stunned if he can break into what is a really good defensive end rotation for Penn State. You look at Mason Robinson, similar thing to him. Carmelo Taylor, maybe things change up for him. Maybe he's able to get some snaps early on, but with how Penn State's going to be looking for a bite at the apple along the offensive line, maybe he's a guy who's able to benefit from that. And then Chimdi Ono, he's a guy who we know they liked. We know they were able to get him. I think a little bit later in the process, but
Former
if
Old Dominion
yeah,
commit, the rare Old
that's
Dominion
right.
Penn State jump, which keeps happening for some reason.
The Ronnie pipeline. And if a young offensive lineman is going to break in, you have to give the layup to a guy like Javen Williams or Alex Birchmeyer because they've been on campus, they've been in the strength and conditioning program, all that sort of stuff. So their time will come. It's just odds are that time's not going to be in 2023.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you there. And then one last thing I want to make sure I hit on. Lift for Life is this week, I
Yeah.
believe on Thursday, the 22nd. I'll be sure to link something out on the blog social. If you're not following there, that's at RLR blog. Always a really cool event. I always love looking at the photos of everybody who got to campus and kind of seeing who bulked up, what the freshmen look like. So this is just one of the final hurdles, really, before the season. This is the
Yeah, man.
last big event we're really going to see before Big Ten Media Days coming up here in a little bit. But, Bill, speaking of the media, how about that for a transition? The media creates a lot of things, Bill. And I'm not saying that because I have a degree in media studies from the Belisario College of Communications at Penn State University. The media is creating a lot of hype this upcoming fall for Penn State football. I just got my copy of Phil Steele's magazine. I won't spoil too much. Go out there. It's a great magazine. If you're a sicko like me and you want to do some like beach reading or airplane reading or car trip reading, I like doing that kind of stuff. But he has Penn State as the number 6 team in the country. And he has them like number 5 in his power rankings. I think 6 in his like rankings because of 2 teams ahead of them, 5 in the power rankings because of the talent of the team. Whatever, you get the point. And Bill, this is, I just think outside of 2017, this is really uncharted territory, at least in my fandom. I don't know about you. I think we kind of aligned pretty closely by when we really started following the team.
Yeah.
Just generally, how are you feeling about this? Like, do you like it? Do you still feel like Penn State's this underdog, considering that, if they are a top 5 team, Michigan and Ohio State are still going to be viewed as ahead of them? Just how are you feeling right now? This is just a really interesting, it's going to be a very interesting next 72 odd days by the time this episode drops.
By the time this episode drops, we're holding this for 72 days?
No. Sorry. It'll drop tomorrow, and then it'll be 72 days from there. We're rusty.
So,
I was in Miami this weekend, so I'm still kind of putting my life together after that.
Nice. So the way that I will say this year is unprecedented, I don't think it's unprecedented in the level of excitement around Penn State. And I'm going to back that up by saying, Phil Steele has Penn State 5-6. ESPN has Penn State at had number 8 in its post-spring power rankings. I'm sure there are plenty more out there we could find. In 2017, Penn State was the number 6 team in the country in the AP poll. In 2018, preseason. Okay. 2018, Penn State was the number 10 team in the preseason poll. 2020, Penn State was the number 7 team in the preseason poll. So I would push back against coming into this season. There is a level of hype that we haven't seen about Penn State before, about Penn State's ability to potentially make the playoff, about the talent on Penn State's roster, what Penn State could potentially do, blah, blah. Like, I disagree with that part of it.
Do you think they're going to be higher ranked than, what was it, 7 in 2017 or 6?
6 in 2017, 10 in 2018, 7 in 2020. Penn State has been viewed as a top 10 team coming into the season, even knocking right on the door of potentially being a top 5 team several times over the course of the James Franklin era. Where I do think this is unprecedented is that we've never seen Penn State ranked in the top 10 in the James Franklin era with 2 teams ahead of them in their division. 2017, Penn State was the number 6 team, number 6 team in the preseason poll. Ohio State was at number 2. The next Big Ten East team was Michigan down at number 11. 2018, Penn State was number 10. Ohio State was up at number 5. Actually, interestingly, there was Wisconsin was up at number 4. So there were 2 Big Ten teams ahead of Penn State.
Back for Wisconsin that year? Was that had to have been Jonathan Taylor and like Jack Cohn? What would that have been?
I will dog ear this and go look at that. But the next Big Ten, the Big Ten East had Michigan State at number 11 and Michigan at number 14. Still only 1 team in the division ahead of Penn State. And in 2020, Penn State number 7, Ohio State was ranked number 2 in the country coming in. The next Big Ten East team, you would go down to number 16 when Michigan was in there. So I agree this is unprecedented in terms of the mountain that is ahead of Penn State. But I don't agree that it is unprecedented that this Penn State team is coming into a season with people believing, hey, that's a team that could potentially compete for a playoff spot. That's a team that could potentially compete for a national championship. I will disagree with that part of it.
Okay. Do you think they're going to be ranked 6 or higher this upcoming fall?
Ohio State, Michigan, Alabama, Georgia, so they're going to be ranked above Penn State. And I think Penn State's going to be grouped in with LSU, with Florida State, those kind of tiers of football teams. So I could see Penn State ranked as high as number 6. Mm-hmm. I could see Penn State ranked with there. I could see maybe USC even ahead of them, and Penn State's ranked down 8, 9, 10, something like that coming into the season. And again, I think we have to admit that a big reason that might be the case is because people are going to bet on Penn State. And this is a thing that's going to come up throughout this podcast. It's not betting against Penn State. There is a belief that Penn State is going to be really good. It's just that Penn State has to do something really, really, really difficult if it wants to call itself a Big Ten champion or a playoff team.
So I think 6 is a pretty realistic spot for them to be slotted. So right there, that's matching the high of the Franklin era, and I think, frankly, of my fandom, or of my lifetime at least. And the reason I think this makes it unprecedented, and it's a point I want to make sure that I get out in front of early, there's 3 projected first-round picks on this roster. We've never had that at Penn State in the Franklin era. So the fact that, like, if you go back and you think about that 2017 team, who do you think were the projected first round picks? It was probably just Saquon, right? Like, people knew McSorley was a baller, but everyone kind of knew what he was going to be in the pros. Like, Godwin would have left, so I think it just would have been Saquon at that point, right?
So it kind of depends on how you're defining for, if you mean in that next upcoming draft in 2008, 2018, Saquon, of course, went number 2 overall. Mike Gesicki went in the second round. Troy Apke, Deshaun Hamilton in the fourth round. Marcus Allen in the fifth round. Christian Campbell in the sixth round.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so but my overall point is,
yes,
we never see Penn State have 3 dudes in the first round, and I'm just going to say it for the first time.
Well, let me interrupt just real quick. Yeah, Penn State has had multiple guys picked in the first round. The last time it happened was in 2003. Jimmy Kennedy to the Rams at 12, Michael Haynes to the Bears at 14, Bryant Johnson to the Cardinals at 17, and Larry Johnson to the Chiefs at 27. That was a team that was coming off of, I believe, a 9-4 season, I want to say.
Okay, and was that multiple or at least 2? Because it was also 2021 had Oweh and Parsons.
Well,
Parsons wasn't on the 20 team.
That was I put the asterisk on that because it was Micah. But yes,
yeah, that's 2020. I forgot Micah wasn't there
because Micah didn't play that year, so put an asterisk on it. But yes, if you want to say multiple first round picks, the last time Penn State had that was Micah Parsons and Odafe Oweh.
That's a great point about Micah missing that season. That's a good caveat to have there. I didn't even consider that when I brought this point up. But I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it many times in this podcast. I call this the window year. I know you disagree with the whole concept of the window program, but we rarely see Penn State go out there and have 3 projected first round picks before toe hits leather in September. Like, it's June 21st time of recording, and I feel confident Olu is going to be a first-round pick. Chop and Kalen, I would put it probably like 70-30 they'll be first-round picks, so take that for what it's worth. And you factor in the 5-star running back who's emerged. You factor in Katron Allen. You factor in the natural hype that's going to come with the addition of Drew Aller, and then you factor in an improved offensive line and everything around it. I think this year and next year, but for sure this year, because there's no guarantee of 3 first-round picks next year, but there's no guarantee this year either, but I think there's a better shot, blah, blah, blah. I think this year has to be the year they make the playoff. I'm not asking for them to win a national title. I just don't think Penn State can do that in college football while Georgia is what it is, and I'm fine with that. I don't think that's what this whole thing is about. I think Penn State has to make it this year. Success for me is going 11-1 and splitting the Big Two. It's year 10 under Franklin, and I give a lot of grace to the first half of his tenure. I think from really 2018 on is when the program was in his image, and I think you could fully get the sanctions out of the way. But at the end of the day, this is the longest losing streak Penn State has ever had to Ohio State. I get they go on the road, but they have to find a way to either break it or to get over the Michigan hump, quote unquote. I mean, they've split the last 6, 3-3. If you want to call that a hump, it's not exactly accurate, even though I just said it. But we'll kind of parlay this into my next point, Bill. But first, do you have anything you want to respond to on that? Do you think I'm crazy? We've talked about this with our friends a lot, that this team has to go 11-1 to be a success for me. It's a better roster. It's a better team. The defense will be better. And there's some Aller points I want to get into. I'm sure we'll get into them. But anything less than 11-1 for me, I think is a failure. And I'm also the kind of guy who thinks the 2017 team was a failure. That team should have gone 11-1. It should not have lost 2 games. That was too good of a team to have that happen. So you said I'm crazy, but we've never really talked it out like this. So let me hear it. Let me hear your thoughts.
I think the thing with 2017 and with comparing it to the 2017 Penn State team is, yeah, if you want to say that was a disappointment, I would agree. And that was because I don't think I'll agree to an extent. I mean, I still think, you win the first New Year's Six Bowl under a head coach. I think like that's a triumph, but Penn State went into that season. It wasn't better than Ohio State. It was better than Michigan State. So that's the extent to which I will say that is a problem. Or that's where
Ohio State, if Buckholz and Bates don't get hurt, like they win that game. And if isn't what happened, so I can't really hang my hat on.
I was going to say what my issue with that is that, but it did happen. And that was the problem that Penn State faced. Like it's very easy to say if this thing didn't happen, but that thing did happen. It did inherently change the way I would say we have to look at things. And
Agreed.
Penn State lost basically as a result of that. They were a better team than Michigan State. That game happened under insanely freak circumstances, but that is a football game they still should have won. They shot themselves in the foot and lost that game.
Big time.
The difference this year is that Michigan is better than Penn State. Ohio State is better than Penn State. I understand the point about first round talent. I was going off of a mock draft, the website NFLmockdraftdatabase.com. It's an aggregation of big boards, first round NFL mock drafts.
They do good stuff.
Yeah, and Penn State has 3 guys in its top 100, all of which are listed as first-round dudes. Chop and Kalen are both Chop is Kalen's back half of the first round. Chop is, I think, the second to last pick before, or is the last pick before it gets into the first round, something like that. So there's that. Michigan also has 3 guys, none of which are in the first round. Ohio State has 11 guys in the top 106 who are in the first round. So if you were just going off of the NFL caliber talent, and here's the other thing, Ohio State's best guy in terms of how NFL teams look at you is better than Penn State's best guy. Ohio State's Marvin Harrison Jr.
Oh, well, duh. That's a dumb question.
Number 10, JT Tuimoloau, Emeka Egbuka at 11, Michael Hall Jr. at 17, Denzel Burke at 18, and then you get to Kalen King. So I will again say coming into this year, or I will at least say from that perspective, yeah, Penn State has the guys in the first round. I'd also say that the reason that Penn State has struggled to beat Ohio State and struggled to beat Michigan over the years, when you look at those 3 first round guys, it's not because they haven't had a potential NFL guy at cornerback. They've had a few NFL guys at cornerback, including one who got picked in the first round last year. It's not because they haven't had potential NFL guys rushing the passer, because Inadafe Owe had that, and Micah Parsons to a different extent. They've had that in even, a little bit farther down the road, a Yetur Gross-Matos, a Sharif Miller, guys who have played in the NFL, Shaka Toney, guys, they've had that. If you want to say they've never had an NFL caliber left tackle like Olu, I completely agree with that. I also think that's one of 5 parts of an offensive line, and don't think he is single-handedly making Penn State's entire. I think Penn State will have a very good offensive line. I don't think he necessarily, as a singular guy, is going to be the difference between Penn State winning and losing a game against Ohio State, even though I do concede the reason that Penn State lost last year's game to Ohio State was, to quote the great Thomas Frank Carr, Bryce Effner got dribbled like a basketball. So,
but the tackle play as a whole is so far raised now with all these guys, and think about it. If you
and that's the one thing. That's the one thing I give you with the NFL draft caliber guys.
Okay, but it's so hard for me because I'm not asking for them to go into Columbus and beat Ohio State and then beat Michigan. I'm asking to do one. Just do one of the 2. We've seen them split before. They've split 16, 17, 19, 20. They've done this before. They've found a way to do it before. All I'm asking is, with this amount of talent all across the field, people are going to point to the 3 first-round picks as one of the big reasons, but everything around them is also a lot better. A healthy Landon Tangwall, I think, is a good ball player. Hunter Norzad can play. Whoever wins that guard spot can play. Caden Wallace, I think, is going to finally figure this thing out. We've seen what bad tackles can do. Penn State had Ohio State beat everywhere except for the 2 tackle spots where they got blown up. Ohio State's biggest weakness this upcoming fall is going to be their tackles, which I think one is a starter from San Diego State who wasn't even that highly viewed in the transfer portal. Those opportunities are here, and it's just the culmination of all this talent. There's more first-round picks on Penn State's roster. A point I made to a couple buddies of mine is that Penn State just went 11-2 and won the Rose Bowl without a first-round pick selected in the next year's draft. And that's not saying there's not first-round talent on that roster. It's just all back on the field in 2023. That's what I'm just fixated on. This is the best depth, talent, We can talk about the quarterback of it all in a little bit, but I really believe this defense is going to take a big step forward. I really believe that the pass rush can be more productive without having to blitz like crazy. Like, I had the number pulled up. I was talking with a friend of the show, Pat. And actually, let me pull it up on my phone right here. Apologies to my YouTube viewers for looking away from the camera for a second. But
Well, let me while you do that, let me say something real quick.
yeah, go for it.
Here, I will go into some more numbers in a bit, but I want to read off two things pertaining to talent, pertaining to depth. Number one is the returning production numbers that Bill Connolly puts out on ESPN. Michigan, and it's not, I don't remember exactly how Bill does it, but it's a little bit different than just like, oh, you played last year, we're putting you down and coming back. Michigan is fifth nationally in terms of returning production. 83. They bring back 83% of their guys who contribute by Bill's metric last year. From last year to this year, 84% on offense, which is fourth nationally, 78% on defense, which is 16th nationally. Ohio State is 48th, 67% overall, 57% on offense, which is 97th nationally, 77% on defense, which is 20th nationally. And then Penn State is 56th, 65% overall, 55% on offense, 75% on defense, which is 102nd and 24th nationally. So in terms of the productive guys who are coming back, Michigan and Ohio State are bringing more back. Ohio State to an extent that's a little more negligible, but Michigan certainly in a pretty marked way, particularly on the offensive side of the ball, is bringing more back than Penn State. And then you get to, so I think that those top line guys, the guys you're relying on, Michigan is bringing back guys from a team that bringing back a ton of guys from a team that made the playoff and won the Big Ten. Ohio State is bringing a ton of guys back from a team that made the playoff and came one game away from winning the Big Ten. And then you get into blue chip percentage by class. So we're going back on the last 4 years. Penn State's at 61% in 2023, but we will save that more for probably later. 64% in 2022, 47% in 2021, 50% in 2020, 73% in 2019. Michigan,
73%.
Oh, brother, just wait until I read Ohio State's numbers. Michigan, 2022 is at 55%, 2021 is at 55%, 2020 is 67%, 2019 is 69%. So I don't have the exact numbers here. I would bet their blue chip percentage is pretty similar to what Penn State's is and was. Ohio State, in 2023, it was 95%. Going back the last 4 years, 22%, 2022, 90%, 2021, 91%, 2020, 68%, 2019, 71%. And I read those numbers to say this. I don't disagree, and I'm going to agree with a lot and then get to a different endpoint. I don't disagree that Penn State is bringing back a ton of talent. I don't disagree that Penn State has talent that hasn't seen the field a ton yet on the roster and has very good depth. But again, my issue, my concern continues to be that they need to beat a pair of teams that are doing this either at an equal level or a considerably better level. And while we'll get into the expectation talk, what I think my record should be for Penn State, all that stuff in a second, the issue that I have with this entire conversation is that we are measuring Penn State against two teams in their division that do stuff Penn State needs to do to be great better than Penn State does. And that's just the difficulty that I have with this conversation. And I've kind of had with this conversation when we've had it with our groups of friends, Matt, and now that we're having it right here.
But they've had it. Like, they've had both those teams be in the fourth quarter the last 2 years. Like, they had Michigan beat in the fourth quarter. They had Ohio State beat. Real quick, before I forget, just to cover my base here. So the defense hit 40 sacks last year. Bill, do you know how many Adisa, Chop, and Denai Dennis Sutton combined for total of the 40 sacks?
I'd guess about 10 or so.
12 and a half.
Yeah.
So they hit 40 with exotic blitzes because the pass rush was a first-time hand-in-the-dirt defensive end, a guy coming off an Achilles injury, and a true freshman. Like, they're not going to have to worry about them anymore. Like, they'll be able to rush the passer with just those guys moving forward. The defense can get a lot more exotic. That's a conversation for August when we do our position previews. But going back to my previous point, Penn State had those teams beat. They've proven that they can go out there and they can beat those teams with less talent. I'm going to address, the quarterback of it all. That's what it's going to come back to at the end of the day. Can Penn State's quarterback lead them to victory? I mean, if Sean Clifford doesn't turn it over 4 times, and I get it, it was an all-time performance by JTT, I'm not going to pronounce his last name, against them last year. I totally get that. I've said it before. You'll make fun of me. It was year 6. He had to have figured it out. That falls on him more than it's going to fall on a great defensive player to me. The 5-star quarterback, I'm not asking to go out there and perform like a 5-star. I'm asking to be 5% better than a 5th-round pick was. That's all I'm asking for. I think if he is 5%, if Aller is 5% better than Clifford, 11-1 is very, 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 very possible. Like, I'm not asking for him to set the world on fire. He'll have been on campus for 2 years. I get there hasn't been that many live bullets, but I don't put a lot of stock into experience. And I said experience didn't matter in our Slack a couple weeks back, and I think I worded it poorly. So let me try to rephrase that. Bill, what was your favorite touchdown the Penn State offense scored in their last 2 games against Michigan?
Hell if I know.
You have 2 options. You have a 1-yard Katron Allen run, or you have a 2-yard Tyler Warren receiving touchdown. If your experience in your 5th and 6th year were really worth 2 offensive touchdowns total, that experience isn't worth a lot to me. I get those were excellent defenses. An excellent quarterback can eliminate that. That's why I'm not really buying this. Clifford is not going to be able to go out there and help lead this team. They have the run game Clifford never had to take some pressure off of Aller. Again, all Aller really has to be in his opportunities, which I think will be fewer than Clifford. He just has to be 5% more efficient with those opportunities. And 11-1, I think, is very much so a realistic possibility.
And what I basically say is that I think that discounts for the fact that, one, like it's just putting so much on Drew Aller right away when we're talking about quarterback play and elite run game. Michigan has an elite run game as well. Ohio State's run game has put up elite numbers in recent years. They had some injury issues last year, but in Mayan Williams, in Travion Henderson, in Dallin Hayden, they've been able to put up an elite run game on their own that they have been able to rely on. And what Penn State is dropping their quarterback into is an infrastructure that he needs to elevate. JJ McCarthy doesn't have to elevate any sort of infrastructure. I think he's a good player, but he is also a guy who is going to be able to, who doesn't have to step in and boom, 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 figure things out. He knows the speed of the college game. Ohio State is going to be dropping probably Kyle McCord, but possibly Devin Brown. Kyle McCord, a 5-star guy in his own right, into an infrastructure that has benefited quarterbacks tremendously over the years. And I think even with saying all of that, while quarterback play is incredibly important, you also have to have the infrastructure around your quarterback. So that's where I kind of disagree with Clifford needs to be able to elevate. For one, Clifford was like top 25 in the country in QBR last year. He was legitimately a very, very good college quarterback last year. And if you want to say the difference,
biggest games is my point.
That's the thing. When your offensive line can't keep you upright, when your receivers can't get open, when your running game can't cook to the extent that you want it to, I agree that great quarterback play can help get past some of that stuff, but it's eventually quicksand where the more and more you find yourself moving around to try and get out of a situation, you are going to drown. Or not drown, you're going to be caught up in the quicksand. And ultimately, I can't in good consciousness get into the fact that Penn State doesn't have quite the level of total team, 1 through 11 on both sides of the football with the guys you can fold in against Ohio State and Michigan to the point that they can beat them until I see them do it. And again, for the millionth time, this is not because I think this is a bad Penn State team. This Penn State team can end the season 5th or 6th in the country very easily. Its issue is that there are 2 teams that could potentially finish 1st and 2nd, 2nd and 3rd, whatever you want to say ahead of them. Can I read off some numbers here, Matt?
Please.
Okay, so I think there are 2 conversations that we're having right here. One is a conversation about aspirations, what we want Penn State to achieve this year, what we hope and dream and think if things go right, Penn State can achieve this year. And I also aspire to this Penn State team winning 11 or 12 games, winning the Big Ten East. I'm there. I am 100% there. I see the way that they can do it. And then there is the conversation of expectation. And to highlight this, expectation is based on what we know and what little bits we could potentially project out within reason. The way that I measure that stuff is by what Vegas says in betting odds and what the computers say as they run everything, put everything together and try and determine what it is. Coming into this season, Ohio State is plus 600 to win a national championship, which is tied for the second best odds in the country with Alabama. Michigan is plus 1,000, which is the fourth best odds. Penn State is plus 2,000, tied for the eighth best odds with Clemson. According to Las Vegas, the playoff is going to be, and a lot has to happen until then, Georgia versus Michigan, Bama against Ohio State, which is two teams in Penn State's division. Moving on to SP Plus. Ohio State is second in the country. Offense is second, defense is 13th going into this year. Michigan is third, offense is seventh, defense is fourth. Penn State is eighth. Offense is 22nd, defense is sixth. According to SP Plus, on a neutral field, Ohio State would be about 6-point favorites over Penn State. Michigan would be about 5.5-point favorites over Penn State. While I think both of those get the point, what was that?
I like those odds. Less than a touchdown, like against
less than a touchdown. You again,
two playoff teams, like
again. Penn State has a chance, but as of right now, as we project things out, and things could change based on, the first practice Ohio State has, Marvin Harrison Jr. can run into Jack Sawyer. Both of them get injured and miss the entire season. Or Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, for one reason or another, can miss the entire season. And that fundamentally changes things. But as we know them right now, Penn State is just has to make up that last little gap. Another way to show this, ESPN's FPI. Ohio State is the number one team in the country. Michigan is number 6. Penn State is 10. The projected win-loss for these teams, Ohio State 11-1, Michigan 10-2, Penn State 9-3. And this involves a little rounding. I would disagree with Penn State being a team that I'd project out to go at 9-3. Let's just go all right, this little bit here, little bit here, little bit here, whatever. I think Penn State's probably a 10-win team. And I say all that to say this. When we look at the objective measures, everything I just read, the numbers I read about blue chip percentage, the returning production numbers, all that sort of thing, those are the things that I believe have to set our expectations of what this Penn State team is, which is it is a very, very, very good football team, one that has a puncher's chance against two teams that have legitimate national championship aspirations, but is just, as of right now on June 21st, a little bit below both of those teams. And again, things can change. It's possible that we get to halftime against West Virginia. Penn State's up 28-0. Kyle McCord looked like a disaster for Ohio State earlier in the game. JJ McCarthy got hurt. He's out for the season. Michigan's back of his end just doesn't look the same. It is very possible all this stuff happens, but by the objective measures we use to try to set expectations, Penn State looks like a team that is, if you're betting on them, that's a 10-win football team in all likelihood because of the teams in front of them, not because of what they are.
This is where I come back to you make a lot of really good points. And now I think we talked about this for months, but I think now us finally getting to hash it out verbally, like it's not a Penn State thing. It's a who's ahead of the thing.
Yes.
And this is where I come back to this point that I've made in our Slack many times that I don't know a better way to word it. And this very saying kind of eliminates the point of like preview podcasts and all that kind of stuff. It's figure it out. Figure it out. Penn State staff is too good to be in the middle of the longest losing streak to Ohio State in program history. Figure it out. Penn State is too good to get run over by that Michigan team the way they did last year. Figure it out. When it comes down to those Saturdays in the fall, it can be everything that, we talked about where they're just more talented, all that kind of fun stuff. I'm not asking them to go 12-0. I'm asking them to win one of the two. Figure it out. That's what it's just going to come back to for me. Franklin is too good a coach to keep on this streak like this. It just comes back to figure it out for me. At the end of the day, this team. Do you agree, Bill? This is the most talented Penn State team Franklin's ever had, depth-wise, like just overall.
This or 2017, I'd say.
Do you think this team is better than 2022 on paper?
On paper, yeah, probably.
They went 10-2 last year. If they're going to be better, there are no moral victories when you spend the way Penn State does. Like, I get that Ohio State and Michigan spend more. I will be the first person banging that drum that Penn State needs better facilities. But figure it out.
And that's
the teams that figures it out.
And that's my problem. Mm-hmm. It's so hard. It is nearly impossible to figure it out because Penn State isn't the only team in this equation. Ohio State is getting up for that Penn State game because they know Penn State is one of the teams standing between themselves and a national champion. I think that's why I have such a problem with this. Is Michigan and Ohio State aren't like these puzzles, these blank things completely that do not control their destiny in any way, shape, or form. And Penn State, the thing that which controls its own destiny and controls the destiny of how this college football season is going to play, just has to figure them out. The other team is doing the exact same thing to Penn State. They are treating Penn State with the respect. Greg Popovich has this incredible phrase for opponents of appropriate fear. The respect, the appropriate fear, the understanding of what that other team represents. Penn State is not the only team in this equation. So when I hear that Penn State has to figure it out, it's not like they're going up against a team where they are, and that's the other thing. It's not like they haven't been trying to do this for the last however many years. How many times do you think James Franklin has skipped out on getting to see his wife and his kids, has slept in his office, has put in that little bit extra time watching tape? How many times do you think Mike Yurcich has done that similar thing? Manny Diaz and before him Brent Pry, that similar thing. These players are putting in those extra reps, that extra practice, these sorts of things, because they are doing everything in their power to quote unquote figure out these things that are going into this game as desperate to beat them as they are to beat that team. And that's where I think I have a problem with it. Like, it's not, there is a human element to this that gets lost in the trying to view it as like, this is a game of NCAA 14. There's a computer on the other side. I just need to be able to pick it apart. They are putting in the sacrifice to try and do this. And they are Sisyphus right now, trying to push this boulder up the hill. And they've been pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing for years. And there's no end in sight. But they believe that one day there will be that end in sight. And that's, again, where we get to the expectation versus aspiration point that I made a little bit earlier. They aspire, they're putting in the work to do all of this. They've just not been able to clear that final hurdle in their quest to make the playoff yet. Their process has been very good over the years. You look at how they recruit, you look at how they develop and send guys to the NFL. They're just going up against two of the juggernauts in the sport right now and are doing everything they can to beat them. But sometimes everything you can just ends up not being enough.
They've had Ohio State beat 17, 18. I'll go as far as to say 21 and 22. They had them beat. They had Michigan beat last year. They just couldn't figure it out. I think now with this better roster, this is the window to figure it out. Like, that's what the whole window year is for me. I'm not saying Penn State's going to win a national title. I'm saying the last time we talked about a team with this much hype was 6 years ago. That was the window for that class. This is the current window. If you're going to take your shot, this is your best shot. I think you'll agree with me. If they're going to go 11-1, this is the best shot, at least that we can see right now, they have to do it. And that's what it comes back to. They have found a way to lose these games. They just have to figure out the way to win it. And that's where I'm going to put stock in the 5-star quarterback being 5% better than the 5th round pick. And again, Sean Clifford's in the NFL. I absolutely am so happy for that guy. But that's what it's going to have to come back to for me. I'm not saying he has to put up the same stat line. I think he'll throw less than Clifford because the backs are so good. He just has to be 5% better in his opportunities. And I think he can be that.
What I would basically say is that it's very easy to paint things as they had them beat and blew it, when it's just as easy and usually more accurate to say the other team had a chance and took it. And Penn State right now,
great choice of words. I like that.
Penn State has a chance and has a chance to take it, but it has to take it. It is going up against two teams that are not going to give them a whole lot of chances to take it from them. And that is the point that I keep trying to make here. This is not talking down Penn State. This is understanding that it has to do something. There is one team in the country that I think, if they played 10 times, would beat Ohio State more often than Ohio State would beat them, and it's Georgia. I'd say the same thing about Georgia and Michigan. That is the one team. So we're sitting here hoping that if Ohio State would beat Penn State or Michigan would beat Penn State 8 times out of 10, that we got one of those two opportunities and Penn State's able to take them. And I have faith that they can do that if those opportunities pop up. But that's just what they're trying to go up against. And that's, again, where I have so much of a problem with trying to set an expectation of, you need to be able, expectation of this is the thing you have to do. Not this is a thing you are going to work towards doing, do everything in your power to do it the right way. And if you just get beat, it sucks, it hurts, it's going to ruin your week, but you just got beat.
Bill, let's go off script a little bit here. Let's rearrange the stuff because I like the momentum we have. First of all, I'm glad we hashed this out. If you're out there listening, if you're on YouTube, let us know your thoughts in the comments. We love interacting with you guys. And Apple Podcasts, we are 2 reviews away from 100. Let us know your thoughts there. Shout out to whoever gave us a review after our last episode. We're almost there. So if you have thoughts there, leave them there. Maybe we'll break them down in our next episode. But Bill, so then I guess let's come back to this thing. I guess expectation versus, what was the other term you used?
Aspiration.
What does success look like record-wise for Penn State in 2023 for you? And this, I mentioned this a couple of times.
Yeah.
I think it's 11-1. I mentioned it in the last episode. You said I'm insane for that, or not insane, whatever term you used. You think that's just a little bit too high, but it comes back to, this is a better team than last year. They won 10 last year. They have a quarterback who I think can be 5% better, and they just have to split the two. I think 11-1 would be a good season. Also, hey, James tweeted. Shout out to the commit we just got. Good timing. This never happens in real time. I'm guessing it's going to be. We'll wait to confirm.
Yeah, we'll wait.
Yeah, but Bill, 11-1 for me is what I would call a success. Anything less than that, I would call a disappointment. Where do you stand?
I would say 10-2. I would say 10-2 with their 2 losses being Ohio State and Michigan. In my eyes, is a success because then they beat all the teams they're supposed to beat. They beat every single team they're supposed to beat. If it's 10-2, but it's a situation like in 2017 where they beat one of Ohio State or Michigan, but they shoot themselves in the foot against Illinois, against Iowa, against some other team, and they take advantage of the opportunity to do something great is right there, but they let it slip against a worse team. That's a disappointment for me. But 10 wins, 10-2 with their losses being to Ohio State and Michigan, and showing that they deserve to be on the field with Ohio State and Michigan is a success for me. 11-1 with one of those wins, I'm overjoyed because then we're probably talking about Penn State as a playoff team. 12-0, I'm getting Kalen King's face tattooed on me somewhere in all likelihood. That's
bookmark that. Readers holding to that.
Don't actually bookmark. I'll get, if Penn State goes 12-0 and wins the Big Ten, I will get a Penn State tattoo. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
Columbus.
Oh God! No one in this entire city will be able to tell me a goddamn thing if Penn State beats Ohio State. But that's neither here nor there. So that's how I'd lay it out. Less than 10-2, really bad year at all. But again, we get into that first game. Drew Aller shows that he's just not. Drew Aller just never turns into that guy for one reason or another. Olu gets hurt. Kalen King has a down year. The pass rush tries its best, but the run defense sucked. we're setting the expectation based on what we know again. And based on what we know, I will say that Penn State is a 10-2 team with losses to Ohio State and Michigan. And that year, which would lead to a New Year's Six berth in all likelihood, I'm really happy with that. Or I'm not really happy with that. If they show they belong, then I'm like, okay, you know what? I can live with that. If they go out,
okay, I guess, yeah.
If they go out there and get
both games.
Yes, in both games.
Okay,
they go out there
last year.
Right. They go out there and get their asses kicked by one of those two teams. I'm going to be really upset about that. They go out there, give themselves an opportunity to win, to compete for a playoff berth, but blow it somewhere else on the line. I'm going to be really upset about that. So that's where I would kind of lay all this out.
So for you, the program, and I get success isn't always linear, but the program spinning its wheels isn't the same record for you. It's the same performance where they get blown out by one and keep another one close. It's can I look
at this football team and not see its path to, and not see that it's doing something the right way, and not see that it's building something, and maybe you just can build forever and ever and ever and ever and ever, and then one day I die. Who knows? But I like to think that I'm a guy who is capable of looking at something and determining within reason what's happening. And if I can look at Penn State and see that there is a team here, or there are the building blocks being put down to compete for a national championship, even if they go 10-2, and I need to put that faith in it happening next year, I need to put that faith in it happening year after that, whatever, I can live with that.
Does the playoff expansion mean anything to you like it does to me? I'm guessing no. You don't care.
No, because here's the thing.
If they go 10-2, they're in the playoff, so they never really got over a hump for me.
Yeah, but then if they win games in the playoff and they get to be one of the final four teams, then they are one of the final four teams. They are in the playoff semifinal, which is the situation they're working to get to right now.
I guess. All right.
I guarantee, if Penn State is the 12 seed in 2024, 25, whatever it is, and you're saying
93 and it's a nightmare.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, if they find themselves, I guarantee if that team makes it to the college football playoff semifinal or the college football playoff national championship game, you will not be saying this. You will be saying this team got to the point. This team got to the point I've wanted them to get to this entire time. I guarantee you that.
I don't think it's as likely in 24 as I do 23, and that's where the window year concept comes into effect.
How do you know? But that's the other thing. How do you know that? Maybe Drew Aller sucks this year and is really good next year. Maybe Drew Aller isn't the man for 2 years, and then Bo Prabula is the guy in 2025. Like, there is just so much we don't know.
Right, and that's why I can only go off what I know right now. And I know that Penn State seemingly gets one 5-star quarterback a decade. I know Penn State has not had 3 first-round picks in like 25 years, and they're projected to have one right now. Like, I know that this defense is loaded with talent. I know Abdul Carter is a top 2 linebacker in the country. Like, just going off of things I know and I can say with confidence right now, that's why I think this window has to be now. Like, and just going off of what I have going on, in my brain and what I understand about Penn State football in 2023, this is the best shot. This is the window. This is the shot.
That's where I get to believing in their process and believing that they are doing things and building the right way, right? That's where I get to that situation. Because if Penn State is able to put itself in a situation where we are having this conversation year after year after year after year after year, the likelihood is they are going to break through. If we get to 2025 and this team is just completely barren, something else has gone wrong beyond the fact that they just don't have a 5-star quarterback anymore, or beyond the fact that they just don't have a guy or two who are put high up in mock drafts. That is kind of my entire point. I believe in the process that James Franklin is putting together. I believe in the building that James Franklin is attempting to do right now. And that's why I'm not as hung up on they have to make it this year, they have to make it next year, because they have one specific guy that they just haven't had in the past.
I guess I just can't fathom the peak not being now. Like the first 5-star quarterback.
Would you have said, here, let me ask you this. Would you have said the exact same thing in 2017, in 2018, in 2019, in 2020, when Penn State was consistently going into the season as a team that was put right around the top 10, top 15, whatever?
It's not top 10 for me anymore. It's top 4. 17. Okay. Again, I said 17 was a nightmare. 17 was We talked about. I wouldn't do a podcast for a long time on the best James Franklin 10-win season because 2017 to me is the worst James Franklin 10-win season. That team had such high expectations and they fell on their face. That was a great team. I want to make sure I get that clarified. Awesome team, horrible season. If they
But
go
I'm
10-2 again this year, that's what it is for me again.
But at the same, but that's not what I'm asking you. I'm asking you
Okay.
going into that season, because that is the point we're in right now. Going into that season,
I did not think Penn State could run the table going back to 18. I did not think Penn State was an 11-1 caliber team in 18, 19. I think I may have in 20, but COVID, so who knows? 21 nor 22. Like I had them at. If you go back to our website is nuked now, but if you go back to those, even last year, I set them at like 9-3. I did not think an 11-1 season was realistic for those set seasons. I think as the season went on, my expectations were raised a little bit last year. And again, I think if the quarterback doesn't throw 4 or have 4 turnovers, I think they win that game. It just comes back to that for me. I'm sorry. They could have done it. And that's why I think that they can do it this year. And this is the best shot, just with what I know right now.
So you're not saying that in 2017 you were going into that season with optimism, with faith, with whatever, thinking this is a team that could potentially compete for a national championship, and you weren't doing the same.
That.
So that's kind of what I'm trying to say. You say I can't fathom that this is the peak. You fathom it's the peak in the past.
But that was 6 years ago. That's a lifetime ago in college football. Who knows what the sport's going to look like in 6 more years? Like, with the windows for Penn State spends like a tier 2 team. Those are window programs. They come around once every 5-6 years. Like, I cannot. I guess you kind of good way to call me on that, because I don't think I explained that well. Then, I guess it's just that they missed their shot 6 years ago. I don't want to wait another 6 years before I feel confident they have that shot again.
Sure.
And I think the shot this year is better than the one they had back in 2017.
Sure.
Honest to God, I do.
Reasonable.
Yeah. Bill, good talk. I'm glad we hashed that out.
Agreed.
I'm glad that we got that all out there. Again, let us know your thoughts. And Bill, let's move on to talking about something I know we're both going to enjoy. And that's our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Bill, what do you know about our friends at Home Field Apparel?
They give us money.
They do give us money, and they also create this is amazing. And they also create phenomenal clothing out there in the marketplace. They make t-shirts, they make sweatshirts, they make crew necks, they make hats, and they have a 15-piece Penn State collection that our readers can go out there and they can find for themselves at homefieldapparel.com. You get 15% off your first order with promo code roarlionsroar at checkout. I have a ton of their stuff. I'm still debating if I want to get the hat. Again, hats are really hard for me, but it's a really sweet hat. Any school you can pretty much imagine at this point. If you're, Penn State fan, but you grew up near Slippery Rock, they have Slippery Rock, they have Temple, they have all those schools around the area that you may have a loved one in your life who attended or is a fan of. But if you're friends with a Temple fan, you're not a real friend. So again, our listeners can get 15% off their order with promo code roarlionsroar, all caps, all one word at checkout. Thank you, as always, to Home Field for sponsoring us. And Bill, let's shift gears in the most cursed direction imaginable, and let's talk Penn State basketball.
Oh, it ain't cursed. This ain't cursed, baby.
But in a good way. NBA draft is tonight, Thursday, June 22nd. Penn State has 2 projected picks in the draft. Micah Shrewsbury has tweeted out some nice things about it. Does not make me like him anymore. But Seth Lundy, Jalen Pickett, I think are going to hear their names called tonight. What do you think?
I think they will. I'm pretty confident both of them will. And you look at the reasons why. Seth right now is the exact kind of guy, play style, whatever, that every NBA team wants. He's a guy, I think he measured about 6'4.5", so a little bit smaller than people expected. Long arms, big, strong, physical, a guy who can man you up on defense, and a really good shooter. Right now, there is no thing in the NBA more valuable, for a rotation player, role player, than a wing who can be a 3-and-D guy. Seth projects to be the kind of guy who can do that. I have a pair of mock drafts pulled up in front of me. Jonathan Givony and Jeremy Wu, the 2 great NBA draft insiders over at ESPN, have Seth going number 43 overall to the Portland Trailblazers. My pal Sam Vecini over at The Athletic has Seth going number 44 overall to the San Antonio Spurs. Jalen Pickett, very unique player, kind of heady, smart, tricky guard who is able to, I don't know if Pick is going to be a guy who sticks around forever. I think he's going to be a good backup guard for a long time. Hopefully a guy who could be a spot starter. His shooting is going to be an important thing. Sam has him going to the Denver Nuggets at 40 overall, the defending champion Denver Nuggets, who are ran by Calvin Booth of Penn State alum as their general manager, and Pick going to the Washington Wizards according to ESPN. So really exciting time. Penn State.
He'd be their best player.
He'd be their most decorated player. No, Corey Kispert had a very good college career. But yeah, you look at what's the next. If you're listening to this on Thursday, we're going to be tweeting from the blog account because it seems like at least one of these guys is going to be in the NBA, and we're going to be talking about this 2022-23 Penn State basketball team for a long time, and a big reason why are these two guys, Jalen Pickett and Seth Lundy.
Yeah, no matter where they go, I think they're going to have longevity in their careers. I think Lamar going undrafted maybe turns some folks on to what Penn State can produce. Lamar's going to have a pretty good and I think a fairly long NBA career. And I think Lundy and Pickett both have that kind of longevity. I think Lundy maybe a little bit more than Pickett just because I think Pickett's a little bit, I think the term I've heard is advanced age. He's like 23, so I get that's old in basketball terms, but I think both these guys are going to play a good amount of time, and I'm really excited to see where their career takes them. Bill, that recruit that we mentioned earlier, it's now official. It's Tysier Denmark.
Let's go.
The Philadelphia receiver is now in the 2024 Penn State recruiting class, which I still do not think will make top 5 just because it's lacking 5 stars. But they're going to go out there and they're going to pack this thing up pretty good as we close out June here.
Yeah, and Denmark is a guy that Penn State was on for a long time, eventually committed to Oregon, but has since come back to Penn State. He's out of Philadelphia at a Roman Catholic high school, the same high school that produced Marvin Harrison Jr., Will Fuller. Talented kid, a guy who – Tony Carr, Omar Stevens, yes. Guy who certain Penn State's wide receiver recruiting was probably – that and defensive tackle were the two positions in their 2024 class that were really lagging behind compared to everything else. We'll see what they end up doing long-term at defensive tackle. A long way to go before signing day, but Denmark is a huge get for them. It's been a bit of a problem position for Penn State over the years. So being able to get a blue chip guy in like him, even if it, 5'10", probably not the kind of big overpowering receiver that, maybe a guy like a Marvin Harrison might be. Something that Penn State wanted, something Penn State needed, and hopefully something Penn State can continue to build on.
Yeah, we'd love to see it. Build the roster, build it up. Let's find more windows.
Sure. Yeah. Let's be a good football team.
Bill, anything else as we send our folks off into the rest of their week and into their weekend as we close out the month of June here? No, nothing really. Just, we spent a lot of time on football, but I think it's going to be really cool to be able to celebrate a couple of Penn State basketball players here in the next 30 hours or so. Yeah, I'm excited for both these guys. Again, I just think both are just phenomenal athletes, phenomenal basketball players, and I think are going to go on. And I think they'll play 5 years in the NBA. And if you and your friends do a 2K association, like me and my friends did for a long time, take Seth Lundy or Jalen Pickett, and you'll have a lot of fun. Bill, I'm going to get lunch with Evil Matt this Sunday. He's in town. I haven't seen Evil Matt in quite a long time, so I'm excited that members of the pod are getting together. Hopefully, I get to see you relatively soon. Are you going to any game? We were talking about this earlier. Are you going to come out for the Northwestern game this fall?
Oh, absolutely not. I've explained it a great many times that I've been to 2 Penn State road games in my life. One was the game against Indiana in 2013, where Indiana beat them, I think, for the first time ever. Yep. And then one was 2015, where they lost to Temple. So I just do everything I can to avoid going to road games. Having said that, there's a chance to go to the Maryland game, but whatever. Also, Bill, those were not window years. And I'm going to shut up now. I'm going to do the outro. Thank you so much, as always, to listening. We're ramping up here now as we turn the corner into the heat of summer here. We're going to have a lot more to talk about. July might be a little bit dead, but as we get closer to the season, we're going to have, more people getting their takes out there, more stuff for us to react to. The roster still has to evolve a little bit. They're over the scholarship limit right now. Some things still have to change, but we're excited to be here all summer to give you some
hopefully entertaining podcast. And thank you for listening. And if you can, be sure to leave a 5-star review on your podcast platform of choice, whether that be Apple Podcasts. If you want to go in there and leave a comment in there, we love to see those. To our YouTube viewers, let us know what your thoughts are in the comments below. We love hearing from you guys. And be sure to follow us out there on Twitter over at RLRblog. I've been tweeting out some plays for that coincide with the days to go for the season. I got to post the Austin Johnson fumble recovery touchdown against San Diego State, and then I saw it on the No Context Penn State football TikTok account. So if you run that account and you follow the blog, shoot me a DM because that was pretty funny. I hope that was a coincidence because it made me laugh that I saw that video posted twice in the same day. But as always, thank you so much for listening. For my co-host, Bill DeFilippo, I have nailed this outro. I'm Matt Flipovitz. Take care, everyone, and go State.